realfaith.org.au.
The missionaries were the blood bank. So all of our blood types were recorded in the lab. We had a guy who had a snake bite and he needed blood, and I was caring for him. Off I went to the lab, my blood matched, and gave him blood. But it was just a really sobering thought to realise, I'm giving my blood to save this guy's life, and Jesus gave his blood to save me.
Welcome to Real Faith. Conversations about the impact faith has on our lives and the challenges we go through, helping us today and giving us hope for tomorrow. That's real people, real life, and real faith with Eric Scatterbo.
Well, today we have part 3 of our conversation with retired missionary Wendy Freeman, who's the author of the book Beauty for Ashes, A Journey of Faith and Healing. Last time, Wendy shared about some of the challenges she faced being a missionary nurse in Ecuador, South America. Today, Wendy will tell us some of the remarkable things that happened while she was doing medical ministry on the edge of the jungle in Ecuador. And on a personal note, I should say that I also served as a missionary in Quito, Ecuador with the same ministry, HTJB World Radio, which is now known as Reach Beyond. Reach Beyond originally began as an international shortwave radio ministry, but then added 2 hospitals in Ecuador, one in the city of Quito, where the radio studios are, and the other is 5 hours away in a town called Shell, which is located on the edge of the jungle. Wendy originally worked at the hospital in the city, but eventually transferred to the hospital in Shell, which she felt was a better fit for her. And that's where we'll pick up the story as we continue our conversation with Wendy Freeman.
So tell us about some of the remarkable things that happened while you were a missionary in Shell, near the jungle, on the edge of the jungle.
Okay, well, MAF used to bring our patients into us.
Missionary Aviation
Fellowship. There were 4 different missions there. There was MAF and Gospel Missionary Union, which is an American
remember
mission.
That one there.
And there was the Brethren and HCJB. And we all had different jobs, and in many ways we all complemented each other.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good.
And one of the wonderful things that I remember was when we moved into our new hospital in Shell, that the MAF missionaries took the day off their own ministry to come and help us move. And I tell you what, I had tears in my eyes watching these guys, and I just thought, wow, this is what I call cooperation.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
And I mean, none of us knew what church we were from. We didn't know what denomination we belonged to. We were all on the same page. We were all there for the same reason, serve God and do what he wanted us to do, And to see these ministries complementing each other was, it was really heartwarming, and a real blessing. So MAF, as I said, brought our patients in, and I remember I was working one day and I hear the plane coming over. The airstrip wasn't far from the hospital, and I could hear this plane, and then a little while later, their pickup arrives at the door of the emergency room, and the bell rings, and I go out there to see who it is, and they had brought in a 14-year-old girl who was pregnant by incest by her stepfather. And I palpated her tummy, felt her tummy to feel the baby. She had been in obstructed labour because she was quite small, and the baby wasn't able to be born. And I felt her tummy, and I thought, oh my goodness. And I could feel the baby's hair through the skin.
Oh.
Which meant that she had a ruptured uterus.
Oh.
But she wasn't bleeding because the baby had pressed against the pelvic bone and cut off the ends of the blood vessels, so it didn't bleed. I don't know whether we should be sharing this on the radio. But anyway, it's, it just shows you some of the things that we do get faced with.
What happened?
So I called out to Steve Nelson, our doctor, and I said, Steve, come quick. And he came and I told him what I thought I could feel. And he said, "You're right, Wendy. Quick, we need to get her to the operating room." So we took her to the operating room. The baby had died. She had to have her uterus removed. Her bladder had been irreparably damaged, so her bladder had to be removed. And here she is, a little Shuar Indian girl, and we couldn't communicate with her. So we were able to get one of the missionaries who was able to communicate and come and talk to her. And she was the little girl was, she was very timid and frightened. And I mean, what a prospect. Here she is. She's never going to be able to have any children again. She can't pass urine normally and, all of these things. And I mean, the only way we could communicate was with love and a smile and care for her, and she was in the hospital quite a while because, I mean, her life was in danger.
Yeah.
She could have got septicemia, as well. And, it was, it was sad. And yet, on the other hand, it was rewarding to be able to, be God with skin on her, to her in her desperate hour of need, and she would have died if MAF hadn't brought her in and if our hospital hadn't been able to do what we were able to do for her.
Yeah. So you were part of saving her life.
We were part of saving her life. And that things like that happened time and time again because, as I said before, people often came to the hospital when it was too late. And they didn't understand. And understandably so, they don't have health education like we do in our country, and these poor people, think, well, last resort, we'll go to the hospital and see what happens, but I think because they come so late and because sometimes we can't save their lives, the word gets around, you go to the hospital, you die.
Oh.
It's not because we haven't done our best. It's because they haven't understood that if they came earlier, they would be able to be treated.
Now, in the community there, they all knew you were Christians.
Yes.
So what do you think was the lasting impact of a missionary Christian hospital being there on the edge of the jungle?
Absolutely huge, because all of our staff, most of our staff were Ecuadorians, and they had been trained by the missionaries. So they were given a job, given training, paid, a good wage and, all the benefits.
And this is all funded by donations?
Yeah, by HCJB and by people in the States supporting them and other parts of the world. And, we had some wonderful employees and very dedicated. And many of them became Christians while they were working there.
Oh, fantastic. So you're just talking about the medical staff.
I'm just talking about the medical staff. Yeah. But because of the care that the hospital gave, we had hordes of people coming because they heard, that Hospital Los Andes in the Oriente, that means the Voice of the Andes Hospital in the jungle, they'll help you. They'll care about you because, often even medical clinics in other parts of the country were only open during the day. Well, we were open 24/7.
Oh, wow.
We had people coming, with burns at night time because their house is burnt down or, all kinds of medical emergencies. And we were open 24/7.
Wow. Kind of a light in the darkness. So
exactly. And the missionaries were the blood bank. There was no blood bank. So all of our blood types were recorded in the lab. And if a patient needed a blood transfusion, they would do a cross-matching to see what their blood type was. And then they would say, "Hey, Wendy, we need your blood today." And off you'd go. And I mean, that happened to me when I was in the theatre, operating theatre, working. We need some blood. So off I'd go, give my blood, come back, and we had a guy who had a snake bite and he needed blood, and, I was caring for him. Off I went to the lab, my blood matched, and gave him blood, but it was just a really sobering thought to realize, I'm giving my blood to save this guy's life, and Jesus gave his blood to save me.
Yeah.
It was very humbling, and very touching, it's the least that I could do to help save this guy's life so he could come to know Jesus. In that situation, I was able to pray with him and read the Bible in Spanish. His family wanted to take him to the witch doctor because, we talked about amputating his leg because it had gone gangrenous from the snake bite. And in Ecuador, the family has the say. You as the patient don't have the say.
Oh, the family overrules what the patient wants.
Yeah, well, they don't get to say what they want often. So anyway, I felt like there was a spiritual battle going on in that situation, but God overruled, and they did actually take him out to the jungle to the witch doctor, but it didn't improve the situation. So they sent him back to the hospital and said, you can amputate his leg, we'll give blood, because they don't like giving blood. They think it's bad if you give your blood, but they were prepared to give their blood. So
he was saved? His life was saved?
His life was saved, and some American doctors in the States were able to get him a prosthetic leg to use back in the jungle. So, yeah.
Our guest today, once again, is retired missionary Wendy Freeman. She's sharing her life journey and some of the remarkable experiences she's had as a missionary nurse on the edge of the jungle in Ecuador, South America. We'll hear more of her story and why she eventually returned to Australia. That's coming up when we return right here on Real Faith.
The Word for Today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
You're listening to Real Faith, conversations with real people about how God works in their lives. If you want to know more about integrating faith into your life, our website is realfaith.org.au. Just go to the website and you'll find helpful articles about the impact faith can have on your life. Once again, that's realfaith.org.au.
Welcome back. I'm Eric Scatabo, and today, once again, I'm chatting with retired missionary nurse Wendy Freeman. She's the author of the book Beauty for Ashes, A Journey of Faith and Healing. Before the break, Wendy shared some remarkable stories about doing medical ministry on the edge of the jungle in Ecuador. Next, we'll hear about her struggle with chronic fatigue syndrome and her eventual return to Australia.
So towards the end of my second term, which was my first term in Shell, I started to feel overloaded and quite stressed. Now, I was drinking coffee and not understanding that, as a child, that my adrenal glands were triggering at inappropriate times because of the violence in the house. So I was tracking with my foot on the accelerator and the engine running too fast, if you know what I mean.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's similar to post-traumatic stress disorder.
Exactly.
Whereas people who are in a war had to be on eggshells 24/7 because they never knew when a bomb would explode near them. So the adrenaline is always there, but you can't live like that.
No.
And so you had to live on eggshells in your troubled home.
Yeah.
And is that what you're saying years later that was manifesting itself?
It was manifesting itself, exactly. And so when I went home on furlough, I was on deputation, and Elaine, my housemate and friend, had arranged to go on a camping trip to Central Australia. And there's this big pile of clothes on the pool table when Elaine arrived, and she thought, who owns this pile of stuff? And I said, me. I couldn't decide what to bring, so I brought everything with me.
Oh.
And that was an alarm bell for Elaine, because Elaine knew that I was a very organised person. I was very decisive. I knew exactly what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got on the bus to go on this tour, and I climbed up Ayers Rock when we got there in 45 minutes up and back, because we had been only given a short time. So up I went and back I came, and I just collapsed in the bus. I couldn't move. And I was on the back seat of the bus, and I just laying there like a log. We get to the campsite, and during the night, or just the evening, as I laid down for bed, I started jumping. My arms and legs were jumping, and my heart was beating fast. And I thought, what the earth is going on? Anyway, after the camping trip, we were driving back to Melbourne in my car, and I couldn't keep my foot on the accelerator. The car just kept getting slower and slower and slower. And when we got to Melbourne, I just collapsed. And I was just exhausted. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was happening. I finally went to the doctor, and he just said, oh, here's some antidepressants. But I knew that I wasn't depressed. It was this absolute fatigue where I just could barely move. And I was eating, and I reacted to everything I was eating, 2 mouthfuls, and my head's on the table, and Elaine's got to take me to bed because I had this extreme lethargy. Anyway, cut a long story short, I finally found somebody who said, I think that you have adrenal fatigue, and, that it's stress-related and as a result of burnout and your childhood stuff. And so that was the beginning of this 28-year journey with chronic fatigue syndrome. This happened when I had this kind of collapse in 1985. And I was on furlough, so I had my furlough, but I had to cancel all my deputation that I had already booked, which I felt really bad about because I knew people had gone to a lot of trouble to, organise it. I mean, this was all over Australia. I was going to Perth and, Melbourne and South Australia.
Well, the life of the missionary is when you go on furlough, normally you visit all the people who are supporting you. So it's also a bit stressful and that it's a lot of travel. It's not a holiday.
No. Well, I had 70 meetings in my first furlough. Anyway, then I had to take some leave of absence to get myself well again, enough to go back to Ecuador. I went back to Ecuador, and my doctor had sent some guidelines for the mission to say I couldn't work any more than 6 days in a row. And, there's no part-time missionaries, and I didn't feel it was fair, my other colleagues having to work their hours. So, I wanted to pull my weight, so to speak. But anyway, everything went pretty well for probably 2.5 years. And, I was reformed and a reforming perfectionist and learning to be rather than do.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, God made us human beings, not human doings. So to be content, just resting and not feeling like you have to do to be accepted or whatever else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're enough as you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything for God to love you anymore.
Right. So that was a revelation for you.
It was a revelation for me, and it was the first time really in my life that I was starting to learn to look after myself a bit and, to realise that it's okay to be. God had taken me off the front line for a while because I needed to be taken off the front line.
And then eventually your time as a missionary came to an end.
That's right, exactly. So things started to I started to feel like I wasn't coping as well as I had been, and my life came to crisis point again. And I said to the Lord, if you want me to resign and go home, go back to Australia, I hesitate to say home because you don't know where home is after you've been on the field. My heart was in Ecuador. But I said, Lord, I need to have as strong a call to go home as I had to come. And he gave me the same verses from Jeremiah 29, verses 11 to 14. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. And I just had peace that God wanted me to go home. It was a shock because as far as I was concerned, I was there for life. They could have buried me over there. I had integrated so much into the people and the culture. I had, beautiful Ecuadorian friends and wonderful missionary friends. I have so many wonderful missionary American, Canadian, you name it, friends, still. I'm in touch with 100 of them still in the States. And we were family.
Yeah. Well, you had gone to battle together, so to speak.
We'd gone to battle together, and we had shared history.
Yeah.
And they were my family. So it was hard to leave them.
Yeah.
Hard to leave, where God had called me to. And, we had all put our heart and soul into the new hospital and, and serving God and the people of Ecuador. But I knew it was the right thing to come home to Australia. And, it took me a long time to feel like I belonged here. Not sure that I still feel 100%.
Well, something that helped you out a great deal was your friendship with Elaine. How did that come about? How did you become friends with Elaine?
Well, that happened way back when I first came to Adelaide from Sydney to do my maternal and child health training. And I didn't know anybody in Adelaide except my housemate who did her general training with me, and she came down here to do her midwifery training. So I decided one way I can get to know some friends was to go to Nurses Christian Fellowship, which I had been involved in Sydney. And I went to this meeting and Elaine was there, and it was the one and only Nurses Christian Fellowship meeting she'd ever been to in Adelaide. And we just clicked. And so we became, really good friends from then on. And, she really supported me when I was on the field, emotionally and, in every way possible, really. She wrote to me every week, which is a pretty big commitment.
Yeah.
And in my last year in Shell, Elaine came to visit me.
Oh, okay.
She's not a traveller. She hates flying, and she's
but she
a real
came for her friend.
Well, I prayed probably for 12 months that she would come and visit me, and I didn't say a word to her. And apparently the idea dropped into her head, presumably, as an answer to my prayers. And she called Barry Cutchy, who was the CEO of, or the executive director of HCJB at the time in Australia. And she said to Barry, I'm thinking about the possibility of going to visit Wendy, or should I just send her the money that my fare would have cost? And he said, it will mean so much more to Wendy if you go than if you send her the money, which was absolutely right. And God worked it that Elaine was able to travel with a group from her church that were going to Chicago. And then she flew down to Ecuador to see me, and it was like heaven on earth for a month.
Well, that's wonderful that, hearing your story and how for a long time you didn't know where you belonged, and friendships are great. And when you came back from Ecuador to come to Australia, you had a friend and you guys helped each other out. You helped her with her cancer. She helped you.
Yes, I did.
Finding a place to be. And so that's fantastic.
It was reciprocal.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but what are you passionate about these days? You haven't been on the mission field since 1989, but you've still been busy in ministry. What has happened and what are you passionate about today?
Well, the thing that I'm, most passionate about now is young people, mentoring them in their walk with God and encouraging those who have an interest in missions to seek God as to where he might want them to serve, and being part of the missions group at our church, showing them how to pray best for missionaries and to, give them some insider information to help them in their prayers.
And to also help them not go through some of the hard times you've gone through.
Exactly. And I've just actually been to the commissioning of a young girl who's going overseas as a missionary, and I have been able to share some of my experiences with her and just talk to her a little bit about prevention of burnout, and the things that I have learned from my own experience that may be helpful for her.
So that has to be very fulfilling to know that, even though obviously your road has not been the easiest, but very fulfilling at times.
Exactly.
But you can now use all that experience and wisdom that you've gained to help others and encourage them to serve the Lord as well.
Yes, I think, God's given me purpose in my pain, and he doesn't waste our pain, and I really believe that all the life experiences that he has given me has prepared me for where I'm at now, and now I'm able to pass on to others and support others who maybe have come from situations like myself, and encourage them, that God's got us, and he doesn't waste anything that he's allowed us to go through.
Amen. Wendy Freeman, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Eric.
Well, that was the conclusion of my 3-part conversation with retired missionary Wendy Freeman, who's the author of the book Beauty for Ashes, A Journey of Faith and Healing. And as we heard, Wendy served with a ministry in Ecuador called HCJB World Radio, which is now called Reach Beyond, Voice and Hands Together. It now has expanded to do both radio and medical ministry all over the world. And if you'd like to learn more about the ministry, their website is reachbeyond.org.au. Once again, that's reachbeyond.org.au. Well, thank you so much for joining us for Wendy Freeman's story and the many valuable lessons she's learned. Until next time, I'm Eric Scadabo. So long, and God bless.
You've been listening to Real Faith, and if you have any questions or comments, you can send us a message through our website, realfaith.org.au. That's realfaith.org.au.
Real Faith is a production of Vision Christian Media.
This program is a production of Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, see vision.org.au.